All right, people, what's good? B&V Podcast, me, Rory Spooner. The boys are back, James Veck and Reece Henley. You know they're doing their thing. And we got all the news and views from the latest football gossip and transfer rumours and social media news as well, which is big tonight, very big. So we're going to kick off. We have to salute Troopz from AFTV. Now, Troopz, for a lot of people who will be watching this, will already know he's leaving, which I think is very sad initially because Troopz is he might actually be the heartbeat of AFTV. But it's a big positive for not just Troopz, but for people like us, people who operate kind of in this realm. What he's done now is opened up a lot of doors for basically, real media opportunities. So congratulations to him. The move to Barstool Sports, that is, they are a behemoth. Just to put it in context, they were recently purchased for 450 million, and that was by, I think it was Penn Gaming, from what I gather. So Troopz will be getting a nice check. He's going to be moving to New York to work full time. AFTV will miss him hugely. Can AFTV cope without him? I think yes, they can. It'll be hard. DT is going to have a lot more ranting to do. He's really going to have to go off because there's no Claude either. Poor racist Claude, he's gone as well. And so AFTV, Becky, I just wanted your opinion on it very quickly. In terms of the humour and the content he brought, obviously he brought Robbie a lot of views. And just in general, how big a move it is for someone from the social media realm. What do you think of it?
You kind of touched on it. I don't think he's necessarily going to be a huge loss on a permanent basis because, there are a few of them there that, they're part of the AFTV setup. I know you said they lost Claude for other reasons. But you can't knock the guy. It seems like, for as much as he has a love for Arsenal, he's taken on or becoming part of a better, bigger project that probably is more handsomely paid. And, you can't really knock him for that. So it's just part of progression and development. So I don't know the total ins and outs of all of that, but usually when a better offer presents itself, more often than not, people tend to take it. So I just think, they are originally a bunch of Arsenal fans, right? That wanted to flaunt their opinions everywhere, and look where it's got. So no doubt that there's other Arsenal fans with big personalities and big opinions that can slot in. So perhaps sad for those Arsenal fans who like Troopz and like seeing him on the channel, but ultimately, like most of us, we're replaceable.
And with that as well, I mean, you can't really blame him for taking the offer. That was on the table. I mean, we personally wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that to our followers. We don't. Thankfully, we don't do it for the money. We mainly do it for the fame and the girls. But we wouldn't do it to our followers, would we, boys?
Yeah, no, not at all. No, I definitely wouldn't ditch anybody for a really sort of handsome check. But yeah, obviously Barstool, again, just to give some sort of context as to who they are and what they do, because I think you're going to be hearing a lot more about them, especially in the UK now. Troopz has gone over because Troopz will take a lot of his fan base with him, which is what Barstool want. When they take you, they want to take your fan base as well. I'd be interested to see how Troopz relates to an American audience as well, so to speak, because of the lingo, the slang, the fact that most Americans don't even know black people exist outside of America, which is still very bewildering. But what Barstool do is they take a personality and they know how to look after a personality. They encourage you to be the person you are and expand on your character. And it's all very much about being, the personality. And I think he'll thrive. I think he'll do very well. I'm quite surprised there's, a few others that haven't maybe gone with him. I think his relationship with Aubameyang maybe tipped it over the edge. They see that obviously he's connected now with a lot of footballers and, they really liked him. So shout out to Troopz. I don't know what the actual currency involved is or the check that they've cut for him, but I imagine it's pretty big, especially if he's going to be moving to New York. So, shout out to him. He's doing things for himself that he probably never dreamed of, and he's helping push the culture forward. So, salute to him. It's a big loss to AFTV, but we wish him well, obviously, in terms of what he does next. Going on to other football stuff, just to obviously go over a few other bits and pieces in terms of our fantasy football team, or fantasy football league, should I say. The league is up and running now, people. So if you haven't joined, feel free to do so. Just getting the pin now. So it's on the Premier League website. What we want to do is just try and build a league as big as possible. We've already got plenty of people in there that we're not necessarily too familiar with. So clearly you've been watching the videos from all around the world, which we're very happy with, by the way. But drop us a DM, tweet us, let us know in the comments if you've actually gone into the to the fantasy league and joined up. And yeah, we'll have a chat with you, because we like a bit of healthy competition. So not all about girls and money, we're about competition. Isn't that right, Reese? That's what we want. So yeah, the pen. I'm just trying to find it now. Why is this not?
I know it's I know what the pen is off the top of my head.
Let me just give it to you.
Prepared, lads. Come prepared.
Yeah. So no, we're actually on. I think it's close to 25 people now. So the more competition, the better. But keep those numbers going up. The league pin, because I remember it, is 8H8HOM. That's 8 Hotel Oscar Mike. For those of you who know your phonetics.
Yes.
So yeah, we're coming up to about 25. Few more days left. I know a couple of boys that I know are finalising their team, so we've got at least another 2 or 3 to come in. But if you've got a team, just join in. The more the merrier.
Yeah, like Becky said, the more the merrier. On to some other news. All right, big transfer news that's happened today. So Ollie Watkins to Villa. Now, this is one we can sink our teeth into, because it's a very, very interesting signing. Last year, other than maybe Ben Rama, he was that guy in the Championship. Everyone was talking about him. I think it was 26 goals and 3 assists. So I went away and did my research on that. So 26 goals, 3 assists. He can play out wide. He primarily plays through the middle, very comfortable in the role. He'll need a lot of help. That's what I would say going to Villa. They really need to keep Jack Grealish to create chances for him, because in the Premier League, lads, as I'm sure you'll agree, you're only going to get a couple of chances per game, and you need to be a bagsman, and you need to know where the back of the net is. I think he'll be a good sign-in. I just want your take on him, lads. 28 million. Do you think it's a little steep, or is that about right?
Yeah, I think with Ollie Watkins, I mean, it's a couple of things to unpack with that, because he's stepping up from the Championship to the Premier League, as we know, which is hard. We've said on the pod before about people like Anthony Knockaert, Tom Ince. Go back a few years and you do start to see a pattern of players who are really good in the Championship and can't quite make that jump. Of course, there's those players who can make the jump, so you just never know what you are going to get. I think 28 million pounds for a young English player is you'd have to say it's kind of a good deal. When you look at it from the perspective of that Callum Wilson's just gone to Newcastle for about 20 million, then it doesn't look like such a good deal. But I actually quite like Ollie Watkins. I watched a bit of him for Brentford last year, and Brentford were playing a good attacking brand of play, which is necessarily what Villa play. Now, Ollie Watkins likes to play off the defender and run into the space, looking for a good through ball over the top, or he can come to the ball and have a good interplay. But I don't know how much opportunity he's going to have to be able to play in an attacking brand of football at Aston Villa. He's going to rely a lot on Jack Grealish. They're going to be pinned back by a lot of Premier League teams. And they, to my mind, haven't really strengthened this summer. Yes, they brought in Ollie Watkins, but they are missing some key players in key areas of the park. You look at defensive midfield or fullback, and they are quite short on players who can turn over possession and sort of take the team up the pitch. So for me, it's a good player go into a side that perhaps aren't going to fully utilise his skill set for a big portion of their budget. So for me, that was a no.
Cool. What are you saying, Becky?
Well, you guys know I basically said this in the WhatsApp group earlier. I said I think it's the wrong club. Do I think Ollie Watkins deserves his chance? Of course. He was excellent last season by Championship standards. I think he was either top scorer or maybe just behind Mitrovic. He was right up there. So yeah, definitely he deserves his chance. But as Reece touched upon, players coming from lower leagues, Championships, League One, you could get a Dele Alli, you could get James Maddison. You could also get like a Scott Sinclair or a Jermaine Beckford, like what Reece as Reece mentioned, that don't really hit the ground running in the Prem like we thought they might. 28 million, it's kind of like, in my opinion, like a halfway sort of fee. It's like, part of me thinks it's not bad money, but then part of me thinks it is quite pricey, especially for a side like Villa. And going back to what I said about the wrong club, Reece again has kind of touched on it, but I just don't really think that it's the right club stylistically for him. You know, Brentford played a lot of good football, attacking football, fluid football. Aston Villa don't play that football. Aston Villa don't get much chance to play any football. You know, Aston Villa, you know, it wasn't that long ago, they were, you know, people thought they were relegated. They were as good as relegated as one point, and they just about sneaked out of it. You know, they don't have depth. They spent a lot of money, and they still don't have depth. And that's last season. So you bring Ollie Watkins into that side, and they've still got all these issues they had before. You know, when they eventually get out on the attack, all right, maybe Grealish and Ollie Watkins might link up very well, but how often is that going to happen? I don't think that it's logically the next best move for Ollie Watkins. I'm surprised that other Premier League clubs aren't really competing for his signature, because there's better football playing clubs in the Premier League who would benefit from Ollie Watkins, and Ollie Watkins would benefit from them. You just look at someone like a Brighton. Brighton, for example, were playing very decent football last season, and you know, and towards the end. And I just think that's one club that's come to the top of my head where I just think would fit his style of play better. But you know, if it's Villa where he's going to end up, that's fair enough. But again, like we said, it's a bit like Dragon's Den, isn't it? But it's a no from me as well. So I'm
You've got to ask the question: if you're a Villa and you're looking at players who are now in the Championship, why are you not looking at the teams that went down? I mean, I know that they got beaten to the signing of Callum Wilson by Newcastle, and Ollie Watkins is very much sort of the second candidate. But you've got some established Premier League players who have gone down that have been overlooked by a lot of clubs. You know, Dale Ofeu is still a Watford player. Can he not do a job at Aston Villa? You look at Troy Deeney. He's
Josh
still
King.
a Watford player. Yeah, Josh King, another one.
Yeah, I don't get Dale Ofeu. I don't understand why they haven't got him.
Or a side like Aston Villa, right? You could pay £28 million for Watkins, who's done great numbers in the Championship. He's young. He seems like a good egg. But ultimately, you're a club that finished 16th, 17th last year, and you need to either maintain that position or ideally improve. And as a side who has to improve, they're taking a big gamble on a player who's never played in the Premier League before. And if they're making that one signing in the window, which it looks very much now with 2 or 3 days left in the window, that is going to be the case, that's a huge gamble.
Yeah. Well, I did the quick math, Big Shack quick math. And basically Ollie Watkins is 14 meat shoes, just for everyone to know. So, like Reece, you say it all the time, and you're very right, Reece, when you say it, that there's better value abroad 9 times out of 10 than there is in England. You know, look, Ollie Watkins, if you shaved 8 million off of that, I'd be like, okay, fair enough. You know, it's a going rate, I suppose, but I don't know. I do think Villa have kind of overpaid a little bit, but he's very exciting. Look, I mean, he's going to be the guy Villa fans go to alongside Grealish.
It could be. What did West Ham play for Jared Bowen? Wasn't that about 20-25 million?
Yeah, it was ballpark, but it stinks to me like a signing you make. Like, for example, when Ross McCormack made the signing into the Premier League and related signings of that ilk, it seems like the kind of signing you make when you kind of expect to go down. You're kind of preparing to go back up, which for me is the wrong mentality.
Yeah, I'm with you. Look, we'll end it like this. There's no point buying a gun with no bullets, right? So, like, at the end of the day, you're going to need someone to facilitate him. You're going to need someone to create. And if Grealish is out, God forbid Grealish is out, there is not much left after him. But Aston Villa fans, I'm sure you're happy. You know, it's a decent signing. I'm sure he'll fit in well. And obviously, we will continue to cover his progress as time goes on. Moving on to other transfer stuff. You like this one, Reece, I think. Chelsea and for a goalkeeper. Now, Reece, you've gone on about Chelsea and Kepa. You and Kepa have some sort of personal beef. I don't know what back and forth it is, right? But he doesn't like you. You don't like him. There's no love lost. The DMs exchanged on IG. You're criticizing him. He watches this. He likes us, but he doesn't like you. So basically Chelsea have said, all right, enough's enough now. We're replacing you. Edouard Mendy. It's around 25 million. Now, Mendy's career is really interesting. I mean, I'd be perfectly honest with you, Chelsea fans. Other than the reports I've seen over the past few days, the history I've done as well today, I know very little of him. But his career is not, he's not that well travelled in a sense that he hasn't been at multiple clubs, but he's not been at a lot of big clubs, and he's not really played an awful lot of football for someone his age. So 25 million is a very interesting transfer. Again, he's 6'6", he's a big presence. By all accounts, he's pretty decent with his feet as well, so he's good in terms of passing out from the back. He's a Senegal international. What's your take, lads? Is he the keeper that they need? Is he the keeper that they want? Should they? I mean, I say should they do it? It's pretty much done by all accounts. So what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got a few enemies in football. George Sampaoli definitely would be one. But I really, really dislike Kepa. I think he's got an awful attitude for a start. If you're young and a goalie, then you need to learn and you need to respect your coaches. And he lost that completely. If you cast your minds back to the Carling Cup final a couple of years ago. Now, the thing with Kepa is he's not terribly big. So you need to be good with your feet. You need to be sure, but you need to be really intelligent, and he isn't. And not only that, I think we've said before, how many times have we said a goalkeeper gets you 10 points a season, and they're in a position now where Frank Lampard's under pressure to produce, essentially. And he needs to be looking at his goalkeeper and saying, I can't have any mess, I can't have you messing it up all the time. If you look at Kepa's stats last season, I think I said to you guys before, in the top 5 leagues, out of 98 goalkeepers who qualified, only 97 of them had a better save percentage than Kepa, meaning he was 98th out of 98. He only saved 55 out of 99 shots he faced last season, which is pathetic.
Yeah, it is.
It's pathetic when you imagine that probably half of those are probably straight at him. So anything that wasn't straight at him, he couldn't get. He doesn't command his box very well. So, yeah, Chelsea need a new goalkeeper, bottom line. Are they going to get it from a Senegalese goalkeeper from the French league? It's anyone's guess. They probably haven't got the budget to go out and buy, an All Black or, one of these elite keepers. So they're going to have to take a gamble. Any gamble is better than what they've got. They can only get better. So they literally, by definition, if they go into the top 5 leagues, they can't buy a goalkeeper worse than him. So why not?
It's an interesting assessment. What are you saying, Becky?
If we're speaking from solely a statistical point, then Reece has got a point. And the only way is up from Kepa. I think I speak for all three of us when I say don't know a lot about Mendy as a goalkeeper. Haven't particularly watched a lot about him. But Chelsea have obviously looked at him and obviously sort of gone, he looked pretty good. And Reece mentioned about budget. They've spent a lot of money so far this summer. So I don't think Roman Abramovich is going to cough up another 60, 70, 80 million for the likes of Kepa. There was a talk of Onana for Ajax as well. Was another one I was speaking about, which I would have been a little bit more sure about that one going well than this one. But I mean, what do you boys say about a keeper that you don't really know anything about? You just gotta. They're taking a punt on it. If it goes a bit tits up, then I guess 25 million for them in sort of this financial climate is not a huge cock up, I guess. So let them do it. If it comes off, it's a masterstroke, isn't it?
Yeah, Onana would have been good actually, wouldn't he? He would have been a very good goalkeeper now I think about it. But from what I heard, and this is just following Chelsea fans on Twitter and sort of skimming through the comments, that one of the main reasons they haven't gone big on a goalkeeper is Declan Rice. So we'll keep an eye on that as well. But I know he's shaking his head.
Honestly,
No.
I tweeted the other day, I'm sorry to interrupt there, Spoon, but on TalkSport, I can't remember who was it? It was one of the other presenters was asking Jamie O'Hara, would he sell Kante now for like 70, 80 million and bring in Declan Rice plus change? Jamie O'Hara was like, oh yeah, 100%. I just couldn't believe it. I actually just couldn't, but my ears just didn't know what was coming through the speakers of the radio. I was like, did Jamie O'Hara literally just say he would sell Kante and get Declan Rice? That's like United selling Rashford and bringing in Reece. It's like, you're like,
out of nowhere.
That would be fucking hilarious if that happened.
You're like, what? Like, that's the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals. Like, you just won't do that. But Declan Rice, you mentioned him. Like, me and Reece both just went, like, no, like, he's just not an adequate replacement for anybody in the top four or top six.
Not a top
Interesting. Four. Interesting. We will keep an eye on the Declan Rice movement, because I think we're going to see some big, maybe one or two very big transfers towards the end of the window. So, very interesting. Going back to Premier League action coming back this week, we're going to go over some predictions now as well. So what we want you to do is send your predictions, top 4, bottom 3, most clean sheets, golden boot, all of that, whatever you want to put down in terms of prediction, great with us. Leave it in the comments and we'll take a look at it. We have to give a shout out to another fellow YouTube channel, Bielsa Boys. They got in touch with us just regarding some Leeds stuff. They had a question, Reece, you said, was that right? Regarding Leeds? Let's have a look here, because I've answered one of them, I believe, on YouTube. So what was the other question there? Remember?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were going to come on to our Premier League predictions, and I guess good time to slot in. But he just wanted to know really what we thought was the predictions for the season for across the board. But also, I'm pretty sure as Bielsa Boys, he's got a more vested interest in what we think Leeds are going to do this season, which we can't come on to in the past. But I guess in the context of the wider scope of teams in the league.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so Bielsa Boys. Well, what we'll do, lads, we'll give a Leeds prediction, right? So I think Leeds will go on a couple of decent cup runs, and I'm gonna make a bold statement, right, with Rodrigo and Bielsa and potentially Harry Wilson if he goes there as well, and a few other very good signings. I'm gonna say Leeds top 10. That's what I think. What do you reckon?
Yeah, you mentioned a couple of names there. Some they've signed already, some that they're being linked to. I even saw on Twitter today that there was reports linking Julian Draxler.
I saw,
Leeds, which would be something. And look, Leeds, they're a big club, right? I know they haven't been in the top flight for a long time, but historically they're a big club. They've come back up with a good manager and a bit of a war chest from, in terms of them. And these big names are flying around everywhere. Ultimately, I still think that they're going to be in a little bit of a scrap. Do I think they'll get relegated? No, I think they'll avoid that because I think they'll be worse teams. But I think Leeds will be around about 15th.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think you're in agreement with Bielsa Boys there. I think I had a quick discussion with him on Instagram, and he very much thought that Leeds were going to be 9th above Arsenal. I don't see that coming to fruition, if I'm honest. But, to be honest, I don't see them in the top 10. Like Jim said, they're a big club. Yeah, they're not a big team. They're really not. And they can be linked to anyone they want. They can be linked to Harry Wilson. They can be linked to Draxler. But until they've signed these players, and by the way, there's 2 or 3 days left in the transfer window. Until they've signed these players, they've still got Stuart Dallas, Luke Ayling. They haven't got Ben White, and so they haven't got the quality that you need to be a Premier League side. What they have got is a world-class manager, 1 or 2 decent players. I think a lot depends on Calvin Phillips' step up to the Premier League. He's another one that could be anything. He could be class coming to the Premier League, and he might not be able to cut the mustard. I think for the record, I do think he will be able to make that step up. But I think a lot depends on his form. And also, one of the X factors there for Leeds is, will their fans be allowed to come in and help their team? Because we know that Elland Road is a very formidable place to go as a visiting team. So I think a lot depends on that. Personally, for me, I think they're going to struggle. I think they're really going to struggle. I think they've probably got enough, 16th, 17th. I think they've probably got enough with that manager and the squad as it is at the time of recording. To be honest, I don't think they've got enough quality.
I think it's worth noting as well, right? The transfer window does close on the 5th of October.
Right.
So it's open to the 5th of October, but obviously it's quite important. You want to get your signings in before the season starts.
The weekend,
ideally.
It's important to get started quickly.
But I guess it doesn't mean that players can't come in afterwards and make an impact further down the line. But yeah, you'd want to get them in earlier. But yeah, the transfer window is open for just under another month. So there could be, some big moves that happen that are being delayed at the moment.
Yeah, no, of course. So going back then, lads, to predictions. So we'll go over a few bits and pieces. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with a top 4. So I want you to give me a top 4, right? So Becky, I'll start with you. Now, who is going to be from 1 to 4 your top 4? Remember, this is all on video now. Before, we did this on paper, and we lost the paper, and then we found the paper, and then it was kind of redundant. So
yeah,
vanished.
And when these go absolutely tits up, I'm going to lose this video as well, just to let you know. So
yeah.
So I've gone. I was angling a little bit in the WhatsApp group earlier when I mentioned something, and I've made a few sizable calls in my top 4, I think, but it's my list, so back off, okay? So I've gone for City to win the title.
Okay.
Followed by United in second, Liverpool in third, Chelsea in fourth. And Reece mentioned earlier players being signed at the time of recording, which I think is important here as well, because with City, with United, with Liverpool, there still could be some big moves, right? Which could affect things. So I'm kind of looking at it as it is now, and kind of preempting 1 or 2 of those clubs making some other signings, and that's what I've ended up with. So that's my 4. Over to one of you guys.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to knock you just in case it comes to bite me. But I think that it's going to be Liverpool's year again. I really can't see beyond them. I don't fancy them from the perspective of improving on what they did last year. I think it'll be a lot closer. But I just don't see any of the other teams narrowing. Well, they narrowed the gap maybe, but certainly not to the extent where they could overtake them. I think when you look at their squad, there's so much quality, and there's a potential for Thiago to join them as well. If he wasn't to go to Liverpool, then that could be one of the big sagas that just never happened. And I don't know, for me, that is going to happen. But like we said, at the time of recording, he's not there. But their squad is still hugely powerful. Mane and Salah.
If they have an injury to one of their front 3, who they got?
Well, I mean, I think they've shown in the past Origi gets goals.
He doesn't. He just gets, in my opinion, he just gets a few big goals.
That's because he never plays. But that aside, we could say that about anything. If Bruno Fernandes got injured for Manchester United, then where are you?
Well, Donny van de Beek would beg to differ, Reece. So.
But, I mean, from my perspective, I think they're going to be too strong. I think Chelsea won't be far behind, so I've got them to second place. I think huge pressure on Lampard. If he doesn't get a good start, I think they'll swap him out straight away and get someone world class in, maybe a Pochettino or something like that. And I think they've got so much class now, especially if they sign a goalkeeper. Then I think second. The reason I've gone City third is just because they haven't strengthened their defence. They haven't strengthened anywhere else in the pitch. I know you can talk about Ferran Torres, but is he going to play that much? Is he going to be their main man? I don't think so. And they were off the pace last year, especially when De Bruyne was out of the team. I don't think Guardiola knows his best 11. I really don't. I think he's got an embarrassment of riches in there, especially in midfield, that it upsets the flow of the team to change it so much. Aguero seems unsettled, and he's their top goal scorer. But mainly their defence is a problem. Kyle Walker is not the best defender. Ake would probably be a bench warmer. Laporte is injury prone. I think we've spoken about City at length before. And then I'm half tempted to say Spurs at fourth, but I will go Manchester United just because of the form that they're carrying into the season. I think a lot depends on Bruno Fernandes, but yeah, I think fourth place, probably just about Manchester United. Not far behind the pack, mind.
Okay, I'll give you mine. FYI, for those of you who are doing our fantasy football team, Mahrez and Laporte obviously have COVID-19, so I don't know how that's going to affect them later down the line if they're going to be out of any games. But yeah, just a quick heads up for you. I'm going to go for Liverpool to win the title. I'm going for Man City to come second. I'm going for Chelsea to come third and United to come fourth. I think United is still really threadbare. Like, Van der Beek is a good signing. He adds a bit of depth, but God forbid anything happens to that United front three. And I have to watch Daniel James run down, like a headless chicken, and then pass it to Lingard, who's just, his self-esteem is on the floor. And then Juan Mata is like 42. So United are very little behind the front three, and I think they'll struggle as the season goes on. So, yeah, that's my top four. Moving forward then, lads, to relegation fodder, the boys that make up the numbers. Who are we going for? So, Becky, again, I'll start with you. Who are your relegation candidates?
So, sort of in backwards order, 18th, 19th, 20th. I've gone Brighton in 18th, Fulham in 19th, and West Bromwich Albion in 20th. Normally, at least one, and quite often two of the three promoted clubs tend to go right back down. And I haven't really heard anything greatly positive coming out of West Bromwich Albion or Fulham that makes me think they'll do anything other than get relegated. So I think two of those will go down. And I sort of ummed and ahed over a few clubs that would go down with them. And you have to kind of look at the clubs that have been there or thereabouts over the last couple of years. So I did toy with Villa. I think Villa could be close on there again. I mentioned Leeds. But just something about Brighton sticking out for me. So I've gone with Brighton to go down with Fulham and West Brom.
Yeah, for the record, I think Brighton might be okay. I like their manager, and they've brought in Lallana. They've retained Ben White. So they've made a couple of key signings there from that perspective, and they've got a few players who were a bit unlucky last season. When you look at Trossard, Connolly, a few players who might actually be
Maupay's a good player as well.
You got Tariq Lamptey at right back, who's also impressed at the back end of last season. But yeah, they're not going to be top half, so I'll give you that. I think I'll agree with you. I think West Brom and Fulham. I think Fulham for me would be bottom. I think their defence will just leak goals. I think West Brom won't be that sturdy defensively, but I think I'd rather go to the Hawthorns than Craven Cottage. And also, when you look at Pereira as as number 10 for West Brom, I think he's got that star quality a team needs to be able to fight to stay up. I don't see that star quality at all really in Fulham. As for the other team, there's a few contenders. I would have said Newcastle. I really thought they would have been weak, but with the additions of Lewis, Fraser and Wilson, they should be safe. I think Palace, really, if Zaha doesn't dial it in this year, because he wasn't at the races last year, in my opinion, if he doesn't dial it in, they could struggle. Roy Hodgson could pass away at any point. But I think Villa, let's be honest, Villa haven't strengthened. They should have gone down last year. Their manager isn't great. Their fans, it's unlikely they'll have a fuller stadium until at least December or maybe longer. For me, Villa will finish 18th, then 19th, West Brom and Fulham 20th.
Roy Hodgson is like one of those British rock stars, like Ozzy Osbourne or Led Zeppelin or someone like that. Those lads that just live forever and just do drugs and then die at like 106. Like Roy Hodgson will be putting out training cones on his 102nd birthday and still going for it.
And he'll still be playing 4-4-2 then as well, his 102nd.
Yeah, and Zaha still won't have a move either, so he'll still be there.
Palace will still be getting the job done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So that's the bottom three for you guys. I'm kind of in agreement with you lads with West Brom and Fulham. I haven't really seen too much there to suggest that they're going to stay up. Mitrovic, I mean, he's a Serbian gangster, so I mean he can maybe make a few things happen, but beyond that, it's difficult to see anything. And you know what? I'm going to make a bold statement. I'm going to go with Villa. I think, like I said, there's no point buying a gun if you aren't going to need bullets. And Ollie Watkins, a great player. But but if anything happens to Jack Grealish, they are stumped. I just don't think they have a lock that can, a key that can unpick the locks that they need. So I'm going to go with Villa. What other areas, Becky, did you want to go over? So you want a top goal scorer. What else was there?
Yeah, so there was top goal scorer, and then player and young player of the season. Really, there's only other one. So
top
again,
goal scorer.
I'll go first. I went with Aubameyang for this coming season. He was close this year. I think Arsenal will get better under Arteta. I don't think he's signed his contract yet, but he's holding out for a few more quid. So whether he's holding for a few more quid, I don't know. But all the noises in recent weeks were saying that, he 100% wants to stay. So I kind of think, what's the hold-up? So I've gone for Aubameyang if he stays. If for whatever reason he moves to somebody else, then my second choice would be Kane. But I've gone with Aubameyang, providing he stays.
What are we saying, Reece?
I completely agree. I think Aubameyang, he did so well to get the numbers that he got last year. He is incredibly difficult to contain, and he's shown before his move to Arsenal he is one of the top goal scorers in Europe. And Arsenal, I'm back in to be a real good fight at the top four this year. I think Arteta's really dialing it in. If Gabriel can be a good sign-in centre half, and with Tierney fit, and that front three actually dialed in, then they could be really good, and it could allow Aubameyang to score a lot of goals, especially with Willian whipping the crosses in. If not for Aubameyang, then you'd have to go with one of the usual suspects like Salah or Mane.
Yeah, I was actually going to say Mane is my choice. I'm going to make a double prediction now because Liverpool, I'm going to make a triple prediction. I think Liverpool will win the league. They'll need someone to score the goals to win them the league, which will be Mane. I think he's the best out of that front three. I think he'll have one very big season, or maybe two big seasons left in Liverpool before he goes and he has another challenge, I think. And so I think, Liverpool to win the league, Mane to be top goal scorer, and I'll segue nicely into Player of the Year. I'm going to give it to Mane as well, because I think he should have got it last year, or this year.
Yeah, you see, I haven't got as consistent here. I haven't really got much of Liverpool in any of my predictions because I just think that they haven't signed anybody and you can't stand still. It's incredibly hard to win titles back-to-back. Teams don't often do it. And Alex Ferguson always used to make just statement signs. He just used to keep topping that squad up. He never stood still. And something just says to me that Liverpool have had two or three brilliant years at the top now. I don't think they're going to sustain it this year. I think they are going to fall off the pace, in my opinion. So with that in mind, my Player of the Year, I've gone for Kevin De Bruyne again, because I think City are going to win the league. When I said City, I kind of preempted the possible arrival of Koulibaly at some point. And if Koulibaly comes in, him and Laporte, potentially, that could do wonders to that defence.
The other one, actually, Becky, as well, was, sorry to interrupt you, was Jimenez. I know you talked about him a lot in, obviously, previous podcasts. So that is potentially something that could be happening as well.
Yeah, true. So I've gone with Kevin De Bruyne for Player of the Season again. I think players like Mane, Bruno Fernandes and others will have good seasons, but De Bruyne for me. And I'll go into my young Player of the Year. He is a Manchester lad, and he has been in the news this week, and it is Mason Greenwood. I put down for my young Player of the Year next year. I think you knew I was going to go for Foden then, but you should know that I'm not Foden's biggest fan. I think Greenwood's going to be young Player of the Season next year.
Yeah,
I'd give it to them both. Honestly, based upon their goal-scoring records in Icelandic hotel rooms, I would give it to them both.
How stupid is that? So naive.
I think
we'll do this very quickly, and then we'll come on to that very quickly as well.
I think if both of those players you mentioned were to play a full season, then I think Phil Foden would sort of do better. But not from a numbers perspective, just I think he would be classier. But I don't think Foden's going to get the games that Greenwood is. As for my Player of the Season, I think people might come for me here if I could be way off the mark, but I am going to say Thiago Alcantara.
For who?
For Liverpool. I'm going to gamble. I'm going to gamble and say that he is going to go to Liverpool. And if he
doesn't sign, then who's your backup?
Okay, if I have a backup, then I think Liverpool will win the title, and so then I think Virgil van Dijk.
All right. Okay.
Young player.
Young player, yeah. Good.
Young player, it is going to be hard to look past. I mean, does Trent Alexander-Arnold qualify this year?
I think so.
You'd have to say Trent then.
Yeah, Trent, good shout. I'm going. Mine's a classic pick. I think you're gonna like mine. Mine is Glenn Murray. He's only 38 years old, and in terms of actual living life, that's relatively young. He's still a young man, so yeah, I'd like to see Glenn Murray pick that up just for old time's sake. Yeah, but I mean, if he didn't win it and I had to pick someone else, I'd probably go Greenwood, which we'll segue very quickly just before we go into that. Foden and Greenwood. I don't want to call it a sex scandal because I don't. Allegedly, I don't want to, I don't want any libel suits against us, right? So, I can't believe, right, that they got stitched up so badly. Like, Phil Foden's missus must have been fucking raging when he got home, absolutely raging. But at the same time, it is. I would say to a look, love, it is what it is. If you're gonna tie down a 20-year-old footballer, you're gonna have to take what comes with it. So, what was your take on it, lads? Just very quickly.
There's been jokes made about it. We tweeted a few jokes about it. We've all seen the videos on social media about the Snapchats, and look, they're young boys, right? They are, and they will make mistakes. Not all young lads make mistakes, but it does happen. But words like naive and stupid come to mind. They've done well to earn England call-ups, and Harry Kane looked a bit leggy previously, and you just think coming up to this game against Denmark, there was a real good chance that both of them, or at least one of them, could feature in some way, maybe even starting, coming on as a sub. It's just the stupidest of mistakes that you could make. Like, they've just got into that England squad for the Nations League fixtures, and something as stupid as that, and doing something like that wouldn't be best advised without COVID on the line. You take that out of the equation, and it would still look silly and irresponsible, and not the actions of a player that's representing his country, especially just breaking in like them two. And then you add in the COVID element and the fact that they're in their bubble, and with that in mind, they also thought that they could just take it upon themselves to disobey those rules and try and bring women into that is another level of stupidity. Do I think they should be extremely badly punished? No, I think that their reputations are dented a little bit, and I think Southgate would have done a number on them, and their clubs will do a number on them as well. And I think that should be enough. But this will be a harsh lesson for them too. As much as we laugh from one point of view, it's wholeheartedly stupid, and I think they'd be going home on that plane and be kicking themselves, really, wouldn't they? On their individual planes, that is.
Oh, definitely. I think it would be so easy for us to sit here and just say, look, they pulled a couple of girls, what's the big deal? And from one perspective, I suppose that's a valid point. However, if you actually look a little bit deeper at it, there's the side of it from Greenwood and Foden, which is extremely poor, and then you've got what it implies as well, which is worse. From Greenwood and Foden's perspective, you've got to ask, how much do they value playing for their country? Because to do that, especially at this time, they don't understand how lucky they are. They are on so much money when people are losing their jobs around the world, and all they've got to do is play football, and they've been allowed to do that. They've been allowed to do their jobs on the pretense that they're not going to break these rules. And they have. They've gone out, and especially from Foden's point of view, as a man who is a role model to his child, and to his girlfriend as well, to have gone done that. That transcends football. You're just a poor human being at that stage. Then you can make the argument, yeah, they're young, they're naive, they will learn. It comes with maturity, but it's selfish. It's selfish. If they were to give COVID to their teammates go back to the camps and give them to one or two Premier League players. That's how an outbreak starts. That's how this started. One man in Wuhan got COVID and gave it to the rest of them. Our game could be off. Just the stupid actions of a few players. Of course, it's not going to come to that. Testing is good and things like that, but choices you make have larger impacts, and it is selfish from that perspective. Alcohol was probably involved as well, which is unprofessional. They need a few leaders, and you've got to ask, what does it imply about that England dressing room? I don't think there's a lot of leaders in there. You watch them on the pitch, there doesn't appear to be leaders. Harry Kane is probably the person you'd look to as a leader, and believe me, I've watched some of the Tottenham documentary, and he doesn't appear to be much in terms of a leader. And that's okay. You know, he does his leading with his football, but ultimately you do need a leader. What does it imply? What does it imply about England as a team and Gareth Southgate? Gareth Southgate is nice guy Gareth, the guy in the waistcoat, the guy who, you know, he's young, he can relate to these guys and very much loved by the England fans. But he's a soft touch. He is. When under Fabio Capello or, you know, under Sven-Goran Eriksson, would you see players like Maguire getting into bust-ups in Greece? Yes, okay. Some details about that story may be, you know, maybe off, but there's no smoke without fire. Walker breaching lockdown rules. Grealish breaching lockdown rules. You know, you've got Foden and Greenwood doing what they've done. I think Hudson-Odoi was playing football at the start of lockdown as well. All of these things have come in the last 6-12 months. Do they even care what Gareth Southgate thinks of them? If you're a footballer, if you go back to the days of Lampard and Gerrard, a call from the England boss is sacred. You know, that person is the main man. You know, he is the person you're trying to impress. When you're playing for your club, you are trying to impress the England manager. He is the top man that can possibly manage you. And I don't think they respect it. The way they play on a football pitch, it doesn't imply to me that they particularly respect him. I think they all like him, but do they respect him? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Reece mentioned the word selfish as well, and one thing that came to my mind after my last comments was the other England players in that squad, upon hearing this news, must be thinking, who do you boys think you are? Like, you've just rocked up here. You've just rocked up to this squad. Who do you think you are? Selfish is basically the perfect word for it. Like, when you're new to something, and like Reece said, getting that call up for your country, especially for, you know, some of the bigger countries, is everything you dreamed of since you were a little boy, since you started playing football. And you would be advised by everybody else, you'd imagine, to get in, listen, let your football do the talking, and keep your head down. And the fact that they've gone and done this, I just think that the other people in the squad, the other players, would just be thinking, like what is this? Like, you've come here and you're doing this. Like, who do you think you are? And yeah, I think they'd be going on that plane now, Greenwood and Foden, and just thinking, what have I done? What have I done to ruin this? Because they're going to have to, you know, this is going to have to blow over, isn't it? You know, they're not just things like this are going to be taken into consideration now for the next England squad and things like that. So they have to get back to their clubs now, right their wrongs, get their heads down, start playing really good football, because that's the only thing that they can do now. I'm going
to come at this from a whole other angle. And maybe I'm built very, very differently to the rest of society, conservative Britain, shall we say? And I'll round it up so we can obviously, you know, we'll come to an end in a moment. But in The Last Dance on Netflix, Dennis Rodman left the Chicago Bulls mid-season in a title charge to go spend 48 hours with Carmen Electra. That's how I like my superstars. I like that. Now, Phil Foden and Greenwood with Miss Iceland and a couple of her mates, perfectly okay with it. Don't mind. I actually think it's quite interesting. The only issue I have with it is the COVID element. That's it. I think the COVID element is very selfish. But beyond that, let young boys be young boys.
That neither of them are superstars.
Yeah.
If Ronaldo's doing that, if Cristiano Ronaldo's doing that, Kevin De Bruyne is doing that, any of the world stars are doing that, and COVID's out of the equation, I kind of say, okay, they've bought themselves a bit of slack. Phil Foden and Mason Greenwood, as much as we love to pair them, are nothing but huge talents with massive potential. So I don't think they get afforded that same relaxation, basically.
Let me ask you a question, Spooner. Okay. Yeah. First of all, if we take the Dennis Rodman analogy, Dennis Rodman was a superstar. Like, he was in the top 2 or 3 basketballers in the league. And you take someone of a huge ability, Steve Kerr, in that team, and do you think he would have been afforded that luxury? Of course he wouldn't. Okay, if I dial it down to everyday life, if I'm 18, 19 and I'm joining a company, and I don't go into work and I don't let anyone know, And they call me up and they say, "Where are you?" And I've only been there a few months. And I've done well in a few months, but I've only been there a few months. I just go, "It's okay. I'm on the golf course. I met a client and we're having a chat on the golf course." You'd be like, "No, get your ass into the office." Whereas if you've been there 10 years and 15 years and you've earned that respect, and they go, "Okay, we trust your judgment. If it's going to work for you, it's going to work for you." COVID aside, of course, you have to earn the right to do those things.
I'm with you to a degree, but I like that. I like that side of it. I do. I like that.
Likes a bit of edge. That's what it is.
Yeah, I like a bit of edge and a bit of character in my players. I don't like these fucking vanilla players that just rock up and they're robots. Yeah, they're young boys. They let off a little bit of steam. Get in there, go do your thing, innit, Jimmy? I'm not mad at it. Go do your thing. Hope there's many more for you. Get stuck in, lads. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. Right, so remember. Oh, wait, what?
One more thing.
Oh, what we missed?
While on the topic of England internationals, we had another brief topic we were going to add in about a former England international. Reece, didn't you want to say something about the whole Jose versus Rose, so I'll call it?
I love that.
Go on.
I've not heard that being called yet. So
I haven't seen the documentary yet.
I'm going to put that on James Vec 2020. But yeah, honestly, Danny Rose and Jose Mourinho have been... Well, this is why we love documentaries now. I think that both players knew the cameras were there. But Danny Rose and Mourinho knew the cameras were there. But you get to see glimpses of these discussions. I mean, he got binned off on loan to Newcastle, Danny Rose. I suppose we heard rumours of a fallout, but I guess you don't get to know that these things have actually happened or how they've happened, and especially the context in which these things happen. But Danny Rose has gone in there to Mourinho and he's basically said, "Why are you not playing me?" And Mourinho's gone, "Well, it's because you didn't play well in this game, and then you played okay in this game, but then you couldn't play well in training." And he's given him a little bit of a shit, excuse essentially for why he hasn't played him. Rather, he probably could have just said, "You're just not good enough." And Rose hasn't taken too kindly to it. He said, "Kane's been shit in that game, and he's trained shit. Why is he playing then?" And he structured his argument all right, but ultimately he's gone, "When's Daniel Levy in? I want to go see him." And well, he didn't win that argument. Let's put it that way. He got binned off on loan to Newcastle.
Have you seen it, Spoon? The clip?
I haven't seen it yet. No, I haven't seen
it. I watched it about 15 minutes ago. So it's extremely fresh. I know Reece said about the cameras thing. If you ask a lot of reality or people involved in reality TV shows, they will say that once the cameras have been there for a certain period of time, you do forget that the cameras are there sometimes. So there's the element of, did they know they're being filmed? At times, yeah, they probably would have been aware, but with them there sort of hours, days and weeks throughout the season, they might have forgot. So there is an element of it being genuine. But like Reece kind of said, yeah, he asks him why he's not playing, and Jose says, "You were fantastic in training. I picked you for the Liverpool game, which is a really big game. I didn't think you played well. And then I put Tanganga in against Middlesbrough. He played really well." And then Rose jumps in and says, "But what do you expect when you play me 1 week and I'm not great, and then you leave me out for 4 weeks and you bring me in again?" He just says, "How do you expect me to get any consistency?" And to be fair, Rose, like Reece said, he comes up with a decent argument, but he's quite forward, isn't he? He's quite abrasive with it. And Mourinho, to be fair to him, he remains totally calm, and he comes back and he says, "It's my perspective." And he's like, "But you're wrong, though." And he mentions as well how, I've spoke to the lads about this, and we all think the same. So they're talking about this, this is built up, and then, like Reece says, he asks when Daniel's in, and Jose basically says shortly, and ultimately we know how that conversation went because Danny Rose went on loan to Newcastle. So it's entertaining.
I think with the benefit of hindsight, I mean, there's a lot of players out there who genuinely have a fear of God of playing left back for Newcastle. But that's where he ended up. But I think if he could do it all over again, I think he would have done it differently. I think if he could have just taken a breath and just gone, before I go in and see Jose Mourinho, a world-class manager who has this opinion, perhaps I'll go to my club captain. I'll take Harry Kane in with me, so at least Harry can sit there and discuss it. We can have a discussion rather than a shouting match at each other, a heated discussion rather than what it was. But he's openly disagreeing with Mourinho rather than rather than just sort of say, okay, well, let me prove to you, let me do everything I can to work my way back in the team. I don't like his attitude. I've never have liked his attitude. I think he expects things given to him. I don't think he's prepared to work for it. And I think that really came across.
Okay. Yeah. I'll need to check it out, lads. I haven't actually seen it. Do you know, when I say I haven't seen a minute of it, I haven't seen a minute of it. So, yeah, I definitely need to.
It's really worth the watch. I'm on episode 3 now. So, Reese has probably seen a bit more than I have. But, yeah, I watched the first episode and I was hooked. So, if those of you watching haven't started watching it yet, if you're just a football fan, you don't have to be a Spurs fan in general. It's just a very good watch.
Okay. Duly noted. Anything else before we round this up, lads? No, we all good? All right, season's starting, so you're going to be seeing a lot more of us over the next coming weeks. Again, make sure you subscribe, like the video, so it goes into the algorithms and we get seen by everybody. Add us up on the socials. Again, IG, Twitter, whether it's the VMV one or me and the boys. Interact with us. We're always happy to talk with you. And keep watching. We'll be back next time, people. Take care. Ciao.